Imagine being stranded, just before midnight in this massive, sweltering transit station. You're running on zero sleep.
Right, and you don't speak a single word of the local language.
Exactly. And on top of that, your travel visa is about to inadvertently trap you, and the connection you desperately needed to make is just gone.
It's an absolute nightmare scenario.
It really is. Every single plan you had has just evaporated. But imagine that this exact nightmare is actually the best thing that could possibly happen to you.
Which is a pretty wild thing to consider.
It is. Have you ever considered that your most frustrating mistakes, I mean, the moments when you lose total control, might actually be the universe's way of guiding you to exactly where you need to be?
It's a profound thought and, frankly, a deeply uncomfortable one for most of us today.
Oh, completely.
Because, we spend so much of our adult lives trying to engineer vulnerability right out of our daily routines.
We do. I mean, we're obsessed with optimizing everything.
Exactly. We plot out every single move on digital calendars. So when a roadblock appears, our immediate conditioned reaction is almost always anger.
Right. We feel like we're losing something instead of maybe being repositioned for something else.
Precisely.
Which feels incredibly relevant for the reality you and I and everyone listening are living in right now. I mean, we are so ultra connected today.
We really are.
Our smartphones essentially eliminate the possibility of ever truly being lost. Like, if a flight gets delayed, you get a push notification before you even reach the gate.
Yeah, you just rebook on an app.
You text your family, you pull up a movie on your tablet, the friction is just gone.
But so is the serendipity, right?
Yeah.
By insulating ourselves against the unknown, we might be filtering out the very experiences that travel and really life are meant to provide.
And that brings us to our mission for today. We're continuing our deep dive into the no-signal audio materials, which honestly serves as the ultimate digital detox.
It's so refreshing to go back to that era. It really is. We are returning to the analog wilderness of 2001, following this epic backpacking journey of a traveler named Macy.
And just to reset where we are in the timeline for everyone, Macy started his journey by hitchhiking down the entire length of Japan, from Sapporo in the north all the way down to Kyushu.
Right.
He then crossed the sea into Busan, South Korea in February of 2001 and has now pushed his way deep into mainland China.
And remember, this is 2001. No smartphones, no translation apps, no GPS.
Just raw survival.
Right.
And the overarching theme we're unpacking today is the philosophy of surrender.
Surrender. I love that.
Yeah, we're going to examine how a frantic rush, a sudden bureaucratic nightmare, and a forced detour actually culminated in a deeply meaningful lifelong connection.
It functions as this brilliant case study in what happens when the illusion of control is forcibly stripped away from the ego.
It really does.
So let's start with that stripping of the ego, because we find Macy in an absolute state of desperation here.
Oh, he is suffering. Yeah, he has just arrived in Guangzhou, China, coming off this grueling, physically painful overnight train ride from Shanghai.
He is completely exhausted.
But he's in a massive hurry, right? Because he needs to get to Hong Kong immediately to meet up with a college friend named Kawamata, who is flying in from a vacation in Thailand.
Right, Macy has zero intention of staying in Guangzhou. The city is just an obstacle in his mind.
He just wants to get through it.
Exactly. He simply wants to find the bus station, buy a ticket, and cross over into Hong Kong before his friend arrives.
Okay, but I need to stop and ask a practical question here because I was thinking about this. Guangzhou is a massive metropolis.
Yes, huge.
It's a major international hub. Why doesn't he just walk up to a ticket window, buy a direct bus ticket, and leave? Like, what is actually stopping him?
What stops him is a sudden, terrifying linguistic isolation.
Oh, right.
See, Macy operates under the assumption that Hong Kong is a universally recognized proper noun.
Okay.
He assumes he can just say the name of the city and someone will point him to the right bus. But when he walks around the transit station, going up to locals and asking, Hong Kong, Hong Kong, nobody understands it.
Just blank stares.
Just blank stares.
Okay, let's unpack this because it's so wild to think about. It's like confidently walking into a bakery in Paris, ordering a croissant in perfect English and watching everyone stare at you blankly. He thought Hong Kong was a universal word.
He really did. He thought it was like saying New York or London.
But he quickly realizes that without a shared language, your whole identity as a capable, self-sufficient adult just evaporates.
Poof, gone.
You are completely at the mercy of strangers.
And the mechanism behind this confusion is actually fascinating. In Mandarin, the pronunciation is not Hong Kong. It's Guangzhou.
Oh, wow. Xinghang.
Right. And the city he is currently standing in isn't pronounced the way he learned it in Japanese either.
Okay, that makes sense.
So in an instant, the sheer thrill of travel flips into a terrifying vulnerability. He's totally lost.
He does eventually figure out the pronunciation is Koningeng, which is a relief, but that just unlocks a whole new level of complication.
Oh, it gets worse.
Yeah, because even when the locals finally understand where he wants to go, they tell him he can't just take a bus directly to Hong Kong from there.
Right. They tell him he has to go to a city called Shenzhen first.
And why the intermediary step? Why Shenzhen?
Well, this is where Marcy crashes headfirst into the geopolitical reality of the one country, two systems policy.
Oh, right.
We have to remember the historical context of 2001. Hong Kong had only been handed back to China by the British in 1997.
So just 4 years prior to this trip?
Exactly. To manage this transition, China established special economic zones like Shenzhen, which sits directly on the border between mainland China and Hong Kong.
So it basically acts as a buffer zone.
A very strict buffer zone. And the source material details this incredible contrast once Marcy finally takes the 1 to 2 hour bus to Shenzhen.
What happens there?
Well, for the locals who live in Shenzhen and work in Hong Kong, the border is highly streamlined.
Okay.
They have these special passes. They walk up to the gates, swipe their cards, hear a quick beep beep, and just walk right through.
While Marcy, who is sweating and utterly exhausted, has to go through rigorous, full-blown international immigration procedures.
Right.
He is crossing from one part of China to another part of China, but he is being processed as if he is entering a foreign nation.
It's a huge shock to this system.
So he navigates it, clears immigration, hops on a subway, and miraculously makes it into Hong Kong proper, but it pushes him to his absolute physical limit.
He barely makes it.
Barely. It's 11:30 p.m., just before midnight, when he finally arrives, and he heads straight for a place called Lucky House.
Ah, Lucky House.
Yeah, which is what's known as a Nihon Jinyado, a Japanese-only budget guest house.
And walking through those doors introduces one of the most fascinating psychological concepts in the entire journey. We have to talk about chinbotsu.
Yes. Chinbotsu. I found this part so interesting.
It's a highly specific piece of Japanese backpacker slang. The literal translation is sinking.
Like a ship sinking.
Exactly. Meant to evoke the image of a ship sinking to the bottom of the ocean and just settling there in the sand. It describes a very specific trap that long-term travelers fall into.
Let me try to visualize this for the listener, because it's such a universal feeling, I think.
Please do.
You are out there roughing it. You are navigating intense language barriers, eating strange foods, and navigating hostile environments.
It's exhausting.
Right. Your brain is essentially running like a computer CPU at 100% capacity all day, every day, just to survive.
Yes.
And then you stumble into a cheap hostel where the staff actually speaks your native language.
It's a total oasis.
There is Japanese manga lining the walls, the water is hot, the beds are cheap, and suddenly you can put your brain into sleep mode.
The traveler usually intends to stay for a night or two, just to catch their breath. But the relief is so intoxicating that they sink.
They just stop.
A week passes, then a month. They stop exploring the foreign country outside the hostel doors. They just sink into the comfort of this manufactured cultural oasis.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and I want to play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Is that really such a bad thing?
Wow.
I mean, if you're a traveler traversing Asia on a shoestring budget, finding a hot shower and people who understand your jokes sounds like a brilliant way to recharge.
Sure, I see your point.
Why do we travel thousands of miles just to seek out an exact replica of the home we left behind? It's like going to Rome and only eating at McDonald's. Why is sinking framed as a failure here?
It isn't a failure in terms of needing rest, right? The danger lies in the inertia.
Ah, the inertia.
Yeah. The psychological tax of constantly being an outsider, of being the stranger, requires tremendous cognitive energy.
It really does.
When you find a place where you are understood by default, your ego finds a place to rest. But sleep mode is incredibly hard to boot back up from.
That is so true.
Travelers who sink into chinbotsu often lose the very momentum and curiosity that drove them to travel in the first place.
They just get stuck. Marcy actually avoids the trap of sinking, though, at least for now.
He does.
Because the next day he reunites with his friend Kawamata, and Kawamata pulls him back out into the friction of the city.
Thank goodness for Kawamata.
Right. They hit the chaotic night markets, and they visit the legendary Chungking mansions.
Oh, Chungking mansions. It is iconic, and it represents the absolute antithesis of the safe, predictable lucky house.
It really is the polar opposite.
It is a massive, wildly chaotic commercial and residential complex. For Western audiences, it's most famous as the setting for Wong Kar-wai's film Chungking Express.
Right.
But for Japanese backpackers in 2001, it holds a much deeper significance.
Because it's featured in the opening of Kotaro Sawaki's Midnight Express.
Exactly.
Which, as we know from the source material, Marcy's journey basically treats as the holy text for Japanese backpackers.
It is the ultimate backpacker Bible. So for Marcy and Kawamata, walking into Chungking Mansions is like stepping into mythology.
It's like a pilgrimage.
It is. It's this raw, unfiltered, unpredictable energy. It is the very essence of being thrown into the deep end of the world, which contrasts so heavily with the sterilized comfort of their guest house.
So they have this incredibly cinematic night out, just soaking in the chaos. And then Kawamata heads to the airport to fly back to Japan via Bangkok.
So Marcy is alone again.
Marcy is alone again. He heads back to Lucky House and casually mentions to the guest house staff that he's going to head back into mainland China to Guangzhou the next day.
And this is where the plot twists violently.
It really does.
The staff member looks at him and points out a fatal flaw in his itinerary.
Which I genuinely got confused reading about in the material.
It's confusing. It all traces back to that one country, two systems policy we discussed earlier.
Right, but how do you get locked out of a country by traveling to a city inside that exact same country?
I mean, it comes down to the visa mechanics.
Okay, break that down for me.
So when Marcy was back in South Korea, he applied for a standard single-entry visa for China. He assumed that since Hong Kong was part of China, traveling there wouldn't affect his visa status.
Which is a very logical assumption.
It is. But in the eyes of the Chinese government, crossing that hard border from Shenzhen into Hong Kong meant he officially exited mainland China.
Oh, man. So his single-entry visa is spent.
It's useless. He is completely locked out.
The only solution is to apply for a brand new Chinese visa from within Hong Kong.
Right. And the guest house staff offers to act as a proxy and apply for him, but they need to take his physical passport.
And that takes time.
Yeah, the bureaucratic process will take 2 to 3 days.
Just put yourself in Marcy's shoes for a second.
It's agonizing.
You are on this epic journey, your adrenaline is pumping, you have a strict timeline in your head, and suddenly a piece of paper, a bureaucratic technicality you didn't even know existed, slams the brakes on your entire existence.
You're just stranded.
You are stranded. The frustration must have been overwhelming.
It is the ultimate forced detour. His ego, his plans, his sense of control, all of it is dismantled in an instant.
But this forced delay is also where we see a profound philosophical shift in Marcy's mindset.
It's a real turning point. This is where the Eastern philosophical concept of sunyata, or emptiness, really enters the narrative.
Because he physically cannot go anywhere, he's forced to simply stop.
He has no choice.
He has no train to catch, no border to rush toward. So that night, to kill time, he decides to take the Star Ferry across the harbor to Hong Kong Island.
And the Star Ferry is this beautifully utilitarian mode of transport.
Right.
It's incredibly cheap, used primarily by locals to commute, and the ride only takes about 10 or 15 minutes.
But the sensory experience Marcy writes about here is just stunning.
It's so vivid.
It's late at night. He is sitting on these worn, cheap wooden benches on the deck of the ferry. The windows are wide open to combat the heat, and he's just feeling this warm wind blowing off the water.
And he's looking out at the famous million-dollar night view of the Hong Kong skyline.
Yes. He even compares it to the famous night view from Mount Hakodate back in Japan.
Right, noting that the towering skyscrapers of Hong Kong make it even more imposing and impressive.
It's a gorgeous moment.
And what is happening internally here is crucial. When Marcy's ego-driven plan was destroyed by the visa mistake, he didn't sit in the hostel and ruminate on his anger.
He didn't fight it.
No, he surrendered to the detour. Sunyata, or emptiness, doesn't mean nothingness in a nihilistic or depressing way.
How would you describe it?
It means a state of being completely open, unattached to specific outcomes and ready to receive whatever the present moment actually holds.
He wasn't Marcy the rushed, stressed traveler anymore.
Right.
He was just a human being on a boat feeling the warm wind, embodying the exact same spirit of the backpackers who had sat on those exact same wooden benches before him reading Midnight Express.
He let the mistake just be a mistake.
He relinquished the illusion of control.
And this brings us to the mechanism of serendipity. When you relinquish that hyper-focused control, you open up your peripheral vision to opportunities you were previously too stressed to even see.
Which sets up the climax of this part of his journey. So, The visa finally clears.
Finally.
On March 4th at 2 p.m., Marcy arrives back in Guangzhou. But something in him has shifted.
Yeah, he's changed.
Because he isn't frantically rushing anymore, he decides to actually stay and explore the city he previously viewed only as an obstacle.
He checks into a completely different kind of accommodation this time.
Right. He bypasses the familiar comfort of a Japanese-only guest house.
He avoids the chinbotsu trap.
Exactly. And he finds a youth hostel located in a beautiful Western-style heritage building in the city's Old Town.
And Marcy writes about walking into his international dorm room and realizing it's this incredibly diverse mix of people.
It's such a cool dynamic. There are 4 Japanese travelers, a Chinese-American traveler, and an Asian-Canadian traveler.
It creates this fascinating visual and linguistic dynamic, right?
Yeah.
Because they all look Asian, but 2 of them are speaking fluent English.
Right. And the Asian-Canadian guy introduces himself as Leo.
Leo. This is where the timeline of Marcy's entire life pivots on a razor's edge.
It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it.
Because the material reveals that Marcy and Leo don't just share a room for one night in Guangzhou.
No, they form a bond.
And they miraculously cross paths, again, purely by chance, much later in Egypt.
Which is insane.
And then, impossibly, they cross paths a 3rd time in Malaysia. Leo becomes one of the defining friendships of Marcy's entire global journey.
Let's just trace the mechanics of that timeline for a second, because I want you, listening right now, to really grasp this.
It's mind-blowing.
If Marcy had known the geopolitical rules, I mean, if he had been a smart, perfectly prepared traveler and bought a multi-entry visa back in South Korea.
He would have passed right through Hong Kong.
Exactly. He would have gotten straight on a bus and never stopped in Guangzhou.
Never.
Or if his proxy visa had taken 2 days to process instead of exactly 3 days, he would have checked into a different room or checked in before Leo even arrived.
The bureaucratic blunder that caused him so much initial panic and frustration was the exact prerequisite required to facilitate this connection.
It's wild. We constantly categorize events in our lives. You know, a delayed train, a denied visa, a canceled meeting as inherently bad.
Right, as failures.
But the reality is, in the moment they happen, we simply lack the focal length to see the larger pattern.
Which brings us right back to you listening to this.
Yes. Think about the hyper-scheduled reality of your own life. When was the last time you let a mistake just be a mistake?
That's a great question.
In a world where every single minute is accounted for and optimized on our phones, are you leaving any empty space for serendipity to actually reach you?
Are you allowing yourself to be delayed so that you can end up exactly where you're supposed to be?
It is a profoundly difficult practice for modern adults.
Relinquishing control goes against all of our conditioning.
It really does. But as Marcy's time on the Star Ferry demonstrates, the space created by a ruined plan is often the exact space required for the most beautiful, unexpected experiences to rush in and fill the void.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you're wondering what happens next in that Guangzhou hostel.
Oh, there's so much more.
Because Marcy and Leo weren't the only ones in that room. The source material drops in incredible detail. It turns out that one of the 4 Japanese travelers sharing that exact same dorm was a deeply bizarre, utterly fascinating character.
A total wild card.
And exploring exactly who that person is and the absolute chaos they brought to the next leg of the trip is going to be the entire focus of our next deep dive into Marcy's journey.
It will be a completely different kind of cultural collision.
Yeah.
It really tests Marcy's patience in entirely new ways.
I am so ready for it. But until then, I want to leave you with one last thing to mull over.
Yes.
The next time your GPS aggressively reroutes you down a strange road, or your perfectly planned flight gets abruptly canceled, don't just sit there stewing about the schedule you're missing.
Pump the brakes.
Take a breath, look around the terminal or the street corner, and ask yourself, who is the universe trying to introduce you to?